Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of eDiscovery After Hours. My guest today is Maureen Holland from AstraZeneca. Had an awesome conversation. We talked a lot about travel. She's been to all 50 states. She's been to an incredible amount of countries. We talked about summiting Mount Kilimanjaro. We talked about the fact that she's lived in like 17 different cities. It was a really, really great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Today's sponsor is Discovery Master. If you are tracking multiple document review projects in the same workspace or across multiple workspaces, whether they are on server or in Rel 1, Discovery Master can provide you one login to see all of the document review projects that you have. Check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks for tuning in.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
All right, Maureen Holland. Cheers. Thanks for joining me.
So this is awesome. So I'll probably get made fun of. I went with Heineken. One, because I just realized brewed in Holland, so it's perfect for my last name.
Yes.
And this is left over from a vacation like a week and a half ago, which already feels like a month.
Yeah. So, so most of the time, right, we line up. The guest chooses whatever beverage. We have the same thing. But you said I'm drinking a beer, and I want to hear your story. All right. So I have no story, but I'm a big local guy, like buy local. And this is Daredevil Brewing Company here in Speedway, Indiana. So where the Indy 500 happens, it's kind of like, that country in South Africa. I think it's Lesotho. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like completely encompassed by South Africa, the country. That's how Speedway, Indiana is with Indianapolis. Like where the Indy 500 happened, that's technically Speedway, Indiana. And so
really?
that's where this brewery is located. So we got a little West Coast IPA action.
I have friends in Indiana. I need to get over there.
They're probably awesome friends.
They are actually.
Where are they?
Oh, you would ask me that. And if she ever gets this, then she'll be like, thanks. Is there like a Scipio, Indiana?
A what?
Like it starts with an S?
I mean, there's lots of
Scipio? No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up while you're.
You know what I need? I need a Jamie. Like Joe Rogan has his Jamie guy who can look things up in real time. I need an eDiscovery Jamie.
I know I'm laughing. I'm like, don't let me distract you. I'm gonna actually look this up because I really want you to know. I want to know if you know where it is.
Where was your vacation?
I went down to Hilton Head, South Carolina. It's a place that I've gone for years, and actually, it's been a while since I've been down there, so it's really great. Have you ever been?
Love Hilton Head. Yeah, I've been probably 4 or 5 times. For those who are unaware, I'll do my explanation, and then you can do your superior, inevitably superior one. Hilton Head's this island off the coast of South Carolina where you get to the island, you park your car, and then you just have a weekend to just chill. There's bike paths all over, incredible golf, great little restaurants, beautiful beaches.
Alligators or crocodiles on the bike paths.
Yeah. Those golf courses I mentioned, if you hit into the water hazard, you just leave your ball. Okay. Bring some extra because there is some reptilian, I would say friends, but they're really not very friendly. I love it. It's beautiful. It's great. Where did you stay?
Well, cheers first. And I also have a fun glass for you because I wasn't sure. Do I do bottle? Do I do glass? Is it?
Yeah, you go with whatever feels right. Okay, it's hard to see the fun glass because of the blurred background. So what's the glass? What's the story? What's the deal? Ooh, fancy.
A friend gave it to me, actually. She's in the military, and I was living with her for a little bit while she was waiting for her orders. And so she got her orders, and she had these, for the longest time. And she actually left them and gifted them to me when she moved.
Awesome. Where is she now?
She's down in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Yep. I dig it. So are you from the Carolinas originally?
No, I'm actually from upstate New York. So it's funny because I was in Manhattan for a few years.
Yeah.
And every time I said, so what's your reaction when someone says I'm from upstate New York?
I think like Buffalo or Syracuse, or I'm just like, okay, so I lived for 6 years in Chicago. So you basically have the state of Illinois and then Chicago. And Chicago hates the rest of the state and the rest of the state hates Chicago. And I just assume
I love New York.
Yeah, I assume it's the same way with New York. I don't know.
No, it is. If anything outside of New York City, it's like, oh yeah, whatever. Because that's part of my story. So when I lived in Manhattan, I'd be like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, oh, I'm going home to upstate. And they're like, Albany? And it's like, there's a whole other half of the state. I'm not even going to try to explain. But yes, you actually Rochester. So right on the Canadian border.
So my stupid party trick is I worked for 8.5 years in transportation before I was tricked into working in eDiscovery. And so I, like people can be like, oh, where are you from? And I'll tell them, I'm like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, you've never heard of it. I'm like, try me. And they'll be like, San Marcos, Texas. And I'm like, 78666. There's an HEB distribution center off the highway. Like, how do you do that?
Oh my gosh.
When you move goods from A to B for 8.5 years, you learn lots of useless information.
Never say useless. I love learning new things, no matter what it is, even the fun facts.
Oh, well, do you have like a favorite like fun fact or like random trivia bit?
I think I have to be careful what I say to you because then you're gonna you latch onto it, and I'm like, then you stump me because do I really actually have a fun fact?
Okay. What's your icebreaker when somebody's like, okay, why don't you say your name and where you're from and a fun fact about yourself? Like, do you have one of those?
Oh, an answer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. Hold on for that thought. So it was Scipio. So SCIPIO?
SCIPIO. Now I have to pull out my phone. Where is that?
I love this. It's in Indiana.
You say that. It's a state, like it's not a county.
Well, I gave you the town.
Scipio.
It's not like I'm saying, hey, do you know Kevin in Indiana?
I do. It's my dad. A nice guy.
Oh my God.
Oh, they have the Covered Bridge there. The Covered Bridge Festival. That's good times. Okay. Oh, yeah. I know where this is. So it's right by North Vernon, Indiana.
Am I allowed to get up and adjust my thing?
Yeah. You
see, now I'm in the dark again.
No, you do whatever you want. You do what feels right.
You're going to edit this, right?
I can if you need me to. I mean, the guy who edits these just had a baby yesterday. So he'll probably tell me it was edited and I'll trust him and we'll post it and it'll all be there for the world to see.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that would probably be like a comedy of errors of like, oh my God, Maureen's totally getting up. She's walking around, turning on her lights. So fun fact.
Yes.
I probably have a few of them actually. So I'd probably say the one that I'd like to tell is I've been to all 50 states.
That is cool.
It is. That's actually one of my favorite things to say.
Okay. So when was that like an intentional thing that you set out? You're like, I've never been anywhere other than Rochester and New York City. I'm going to see the world. Or was this a thing where you were like, 30 years old and you realized I've already been to 35 states. I better just round this out and finish it,
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. I've always embraced travel. And I've actually lived in, I think, Virginia, where I am now, is probably, I think, my 17th city that I've lived in, and 9th state. So a lot of it, it started after school and visiting friends. And then, like you said, you just get to a certain point in your life. You're like, wow, when you actually sit down and add it all up, it's like, I think I was at 44.
Yeah.
And I realized I had 6 left. And then most of the moves have been because of my job. I've always embraced change and I've always wanted new opportunities. And because it always worked out where I don't really have too many responsibilities, I could pick up and leave and go, which I loved. And so I've lived on the West Coast. And so I did cross-country trips. Yeah. And so I would make a point to go to all these different states. So the clarification is, I actually have a funny story as I say this. I've had to actually step foot in the state. So I'm not talking about flights. I haven't flown through the states. I've been because my mom called me on it. And so she's like, really? She's like, how many airports? I'm like, no, I'm not, it's not airports. So I think it was Utah where there became kind of a discrepancy. So I literally flew out to Utah, did something out there, and then flew back. So
funny.
I could knock Utah off my state.
So my thing with that is like Denver. I connect through Denver all the time. I've never spent 30 seconds in the state of Colorado outside that airport. And I want to in the worst way, because I don't think any human being has ever said a bad word about Colorado. Mm-hmm. So I got to get with it. But that's cool.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah. So I've heard. Are you a skier?
I used to be, more like hiking and trail running and stuff like that. Yeah. But like when I was growing up, we did all the outdoor sports in Rochester, because that was when you had all the major snowstorms, and so it was awesome just to be outside and to do all that kind of good stuff. What about you in travel?
Well, so now I have 3 kids, so you don't really travel as much as you move the circus to another town.
And then camp out.
Yeah. So like we actually did 4 trips this summer. So we live in Indianapolis. We went to the suburbs of Chicago. My wife's grandpa's 92.
Oh, wow.
We went to visit him. And then we were in Georgia. My dad is one of 8. He has a brother in DC and one in Sacramento, and then siblings everywhere in between. So this was like our 29th year of getting together somewhere in Appalachia. And I say Appalachia, we've done the Carolinas too. So we've done a few of those trips at Hilton Head. Nice. So we did that. And then we were in Michigan to visit friends. And then we were in California to visit my wife's grandma, who's 90.
Where in California?
Lake Arrowhead. Oh. So my father-in-law grew up in Glendale.
That's kind of like is it more northern?
No, Glendale's just north of LA. It's like a suburb of LA.
I probably should know that because I lived in San Diego for 4 years.
Yeah, he lived 10 minutes from the Rose Bowl growing up.
Oh my God.
So he would work on the parade floats.
Oh, that's cool. We went there for one time and it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah. So there's a chain. If you go and if you're at LAX and you go like an hour and a half east and then slightly north, you're up in the San Bernardino Mountains. Yeah. And there's a couple of man-made lakes up there that were, dammed to irrigate the valley. And then people started building homes on the lakes. So there you go. What's funny is must have been June. I was talking to a partner at an AmLaw firm out in LA, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be out your way if you want to get together. And she was like, oh, I'm going to be out of town, blah, 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 blah. But then we started talking. She's like, why are you coming out here? And I was like, oh, my wife's grandma has a home on a lake up in the mountains. And she goes, oh, which lake? And I was like, Lake Arrowhead. And she goes, no, I'll edit myself. No way. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes,
she was going to be?
She's like, she wasn't there that week. She's like, we've had a home there for like 40 years. I was like, what are the chances? Yeah. It's cool. Small world.
It really is. For as big as it is, it's very small.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay. There was something else that I had wanted to ask from your intro, something about Holland. What was it? A Heineken that you're drinking? What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any?
Oh, because it's the leftover from the vacation. So it's more about, it brought back a good memory just because it's like, and my parents are getting older and they were down there as well. So, and it's probably going to be the last time for a while that I get down there. Yeah. But it was a great way to spend the week, especially since you know what Hilton Head's like.
Oh my gosh. Do they live down there?
No. They're up in Rochester.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
My brothers and all that.
Nice. I love it. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 older brothers.
3 older brothers. Okay.
I'm the youngest.
I'm the oldest of 5.
Oh, wow.
And I have 1 sister. So she's surrounded.
Poor thing. I can sympathize with her.
Yeah. What was it like growing up? What was it like growing up as the youngest? So my mother-in-law is the youngest of 4, and she has 3 older brothers.
Oh, wow.
What's your perspective? What's that like? Did you ever get to go on a date without like the worst 3rd degree? Would you meet the guy like down the block?
Well, it's funny. We're all so close in age. And by the time, all that was going on, like they were kind of above me and out of the house. So I didn't get trapped. But it's funny because whenever I tell people that, I automatically get sympathy. But now that I'm older, I can actually confess that I probably gave as good as I got. So I instigated a lot of stuff. So it wasn't all them.
Well, you're daddy's little princess, the youngest and the only girl. I mean, you got away with murder probably.
Oh, yeah. My brothers would tell you, yes, absolutely. Well, it's like any parent. It's like once you get to the last kid, it's like, oh, my gosh, what do you want to do? Go play in the street? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you just get tired and you're like, well, we've got a spare, so it's fine.
No, it's been good. I wouldn't trade it, actually. I loved growing up with brothers. It's something that I really value now as I'm older.
Yeah.
Just different perspectives.
So it sounds like you guys are still close. Are they also close to home, or are they all spread out and got the travel bug like you?
No, they all have families. 2 of them are in Rochester, actually around where my parents are. And then one older brother and his wife are out in Seattle. So across in the West Coast. Oh, nice. And they've been out there for years.
So he grew up and he's like, I don't like the snow. I want to go to the rain. That's my preferred climate.
Yeah. And he was actually down in LA for a while. They were there for the longest time. And then his wife got a great job with actually Eddie Bauer up in Seattle. So they relocated up in that area. And yeah, they love it up there.
Nice. I dig it.
So.
All right. So all these moves that you've done.
Quite a bit.
To me, one of the best parts of buying a house was knowing like, I am out, like this undergrad and then young professional phase where you're moving like every 13 months to another apartment for like a decade.
Yeah.
I was so glad to sign that blue ink and that dotted line on a mortgage. I'm like, I am stuck. They're going to wheel me out of here.
I'm not going to lie. When I got to Virginia, yeah, I won't say what I said, but I'm really happy. Like the last thing I ever want to do right now is move. Either I'm old or it's like it's not as fun anymore, but it's funny. It kind of ties into career, right? I mean, I really did the travel, not only for friends, because I do have an addiction to travel. I really do. I love it. I mean, I've been all over the world and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so it's funny because once I hit the 50th state, I'm like, well, what's next? And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to have to go to all these, like the different continents.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, obviously. So that changed everything. But a lot of it was for career. So, as tough as it was to move, a lot of it leads into the great experiences that I've had from my career perspective. So it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah. What's your favorite place in the world?
I'd probably say my favorite place was Africa. So I went to.
That is a big continent. Like, what does that mean? So
I went to Kenya and Tanzania. And actually, I learned this while I was there, that it's actually called Tanzania, not Tanzania. Mm-hmm. So it's funny because everybody that I was there with, we were all saying it wrong. And they're like, no, that's not how you say it. But then
Stop that, American. Yeah.
But it sounds so funny that it's like, that can't be how you say it. So
Tanzania.
Yeah, Tanzania or something like that.
Why is that your favorite? What was amazing about it?
It's the people and the culture. I think that's the one thing about the trips that I've been so fortunate to and blessed pretty much to take, is you just got to meet people, different people from different cultures. And, for people who have so little, they have so much, and they're just genuinely happy. And they're just genuinely, so excited to have you there and to show you the way they live, which really isn't much. It humbles you, and then it's funny because it's like a slap in the face to come back through customs into the US because it's a whole different world. You're like, can I just go back for like another week or two?
Yeah.
But yeah, just the people and the culture, it was pretty incredible.
There's something, and I don't mean to romanticize it.
No.
There's something very noble and beautiful about, an impoverished life, right? And I'm not I'm not abdicating that we go back there, right? Because there's terrible disease and instability and all kinds of things that afflict a lot of these places. But when you don't have much, you appreciate everything you have.
Well, I was just about to say that it's really the less is more, and and what's important to them. It kind of takes you back to just, and again, not everybody's like that, right? Not everybody kind of gets into the culture like maybe like I do. But I tell you, it's just gratitude, and it's coming back and just knowing how much you actually have. So talk about romanticizing it. I mean, it really hits home. But yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So when you travel, do you intentionally try to find places off the beaten path? Like you're not getting on and Googling like top 10 things to do or like going to the TripAdvisor list. Like you're like, no, I want to
go.
Yeah. Like I want to be, when I go somewhere, like I want to, so you asked about like how I am traveling. I started riffing on my kids. I love it. Wish I could do it more.
Yeah.
But obviously different life situation at this point.
Yeah.
But when I do travel, whether that's domestically or abroad, I want to get the local experience, and I'll do a couple of touristy things, right? There's a reason that something became touristy. It's part of the local lore. Whether or not people roll their eyes at it now, it formed a part of that culture or civilization decades or centuries ago. So like, I'll do a couple of those things, but like, I want to go, where do the locals eat? Where do the locals go to listen to live music? Where do the locals, spend their time? Because people, I think, confuse a good life spot for a good vacation spot.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get a blend of both whenever I travel. So how do you kind of construct your itinerary?
So I actually went to Africa with a purpose. You can tell I'm laughing.
How many Heinekens did you have off camera?
0, actually. You know what makes me happy is that, and I'm so grateful again for you to kind of have this experience, because it's really nice to like not be talking about work so much.
Yeah.
So like you're making me kind of think about all the things that I love to do, but I'm laughing because when you hear the reason I went to Africa, it's kind of, so I like to do adventure trips. So we went with a group of people, actually, I know, because it's a long story, but I met somebody who just loves to travel the world and be active. And she was actually going for her 50th birthday to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So she opened it up and she coordinated a trip of 30 people. So not everybody had to do it, but so that was the big part of it, is we actually went there to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And
did you make it to the summit?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it took me, gosh, it's kind of a blur. I think it took me like 9 hours to go up and then 2.5 hours to go down, because by the time you get to the top, because you're with guides, they want you down so fast because you're at about 19,400 feet. They basically just push you down. Like they keep you going and grab you by the arms and just say, keep going, because they want to get you down there. But yeah, it was an experience of a lifetime, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh my gosh. So what have you what other summits? Like you said, you're doing this continental thing now. Like you've got to do like Rainier.
No. We're not going that far. I got my bucket list. I'm not that person where I'm going across the world to do summits, but I do like to be active. And going back to your point, it's being with like-minded people, because a lot of my friends actually we all met through the same group. And so Jenny, who runs the group, so would be like, oh, hey, what do you guys think about this? Like, so we also went to Patagonia. And so, exactly. And so Argentina and Chile and and then you were on the trails for a week or two, and then you would have a week to kind of just really get local. So a big part of those trips were actually seeing really how the locals live. We went to farms, we went, to the local restaurants. We went to, it was awesome.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yeah.
I talked in another episode about my trip to Ireland. And
I love Ireland.
Yeah. So
I was just talking to a friend of mine about going back there. That would be somewhere I'd want to go back.
Which part?
I've never been to Northern. So I'd love to check out Northern now that it's a little bit more peaceful, I guess. But anywhere in Ireland I would go. I think we still have family over there. Tell me about your trip. I keep interrupting you.
No, not at all. I've spoken about the trip, like I said on another episode, but it was really special because like I love history, I love genealogy.
Oh yeah.
And so I got to see the stone remains of the home where my family lived for 200 years.
Oh my gosh.
It was incredible. I mean, I get the chills every time I utter the phrase, and it was literally a beautiful spiritual moment. And
were you able to kind of look up documentation while you were there? Like, did you, because I've always heard, and I think my brothers actually did this with my parents, and they were over there, and so it's my dad's family. And he would go to these archives, these little stone houses with archives, and you would see his like father's like name on one of the logbooks. Like, did you do things like that?
Didn't have to, because we still do have some family over there. Okay. So like, the documentation is flesh and blood. But so, you know, what's interesting about Ireland, so people talk about like the Dark Ages and all that was lost and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, the Catholic Church was huge in Ireland up really until 20 or 30 years ago. And so, you know, the documentation came through canon law because of the sacraments. I mean, basically, if, you know, with the exception of Northern Ireland and then Cromwell and, you know, the kind of colonialism, if you were Irish, you were Catholic. It was a blend of nationalism and religion that just kind of came to be, right? And there's some really incredible books that unpack. It's not like this glossy-eyed comfort history. And it's not like, oh, the Irish are the best and they were taken over by the evil Brits, you know, like it's very good, beautiful, nuanced books that I've read quite a few of them. But the Irish heritage has been so thoroughly documented because of like church canon law, where like, so I, for example, was baptized at Our Lady Star of the Sea in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And then like so I've gotten sacraments at 4 or 5 different churches throughout my life, but all of those go back to the church where you're baptized. And so Ireland has this incredible documented trail of the people of this island over the last 2 centuries because of the church. I mean, it's really incredible. Wow. Did you see the book? What was it called? The Book of Kells, the Book of something, that incredible Bible at University College in Dublin.
Oh yeah. We definitely went there.
And you'd think like some dude like with a candlelight hunched over this little wooden desk wrote this out by hand like 500 years ago. And then I feel like such an inconsequential human being.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying about culture, right? I mean, it's just, I think that's the other thing I love about going to Europe and all the different places is that they tend to hang on to their history. Yeah. You know, and we're such a young country. But even any of the history that we have, we just seem to want to build something new over it. You know what I mean? Where you can see things that are that old. I mean, another trip that I took was the Inca Trail, right? And when you think about the trail that you're like hiking, and the people who've done it over all these years, it makes you feel inconsequential. Yeah.
My parents went to Machu Picchu right before COVID. In fact, we were joking with them because COVID was a thing in China and in Italy. Yep. And they were going to South America. And we're like, oh, hope they don't shut down the border. And then literally they were like the last flight home. I'm not exaggerating.
Really?
Like, hours after they left, the borders were shut.
But the most important question, did they like it?
Yeah. So what I was going to say was they were at Machu Picchu with this engineer who, you know, we're from Indiana. This guy's like from Illinois or Ohio. I don't know, some border state. And he said everything about Machu Picchu is like the opposite of how they teach structural engineers for the last 100 years. He goes, this place has lasted for centuries and we have crumbling bridges and buildings and all this stuff. And he goes, what have we done? And
it's incredible because when you hike the trail, I don't know if your parents are active enough where they hike the trail.
Yeah.
When you hike the trail, it's really incredible because we planned it so that so they have these things called the gates, and it's at the very end of the trail. And when we planned it so that we got there at sunrise. Yeah. So it was really early morning and it was cloudy and it was weird because you're so high up, it's just all clouds.
Yeah.
But then it's, you know, we all sat and you sit on these like stone stairs and you're thinking that like, who created this? Like who built this? And then you have to take a pathway down and you have to hike down to Machu Picchu. But when you're sitting on the stairs waiting for it, you're like, oh my gosh, I mean, am I going to fall off this trail that's like to my death? Because it's like, you know, you're in the Andes or whatever. And you're just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But the clouds parted and they just went away, and it was magical because all of a sudden you're just staring at Machu Picchu, like right in front of you. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And yeah, it's funny. You go into debt a little bit for travel. So don't let me fool you. It's not like I have unlimited resources. But I'm truly a believer in the experiences, you know, because I would rather have the opportunity to see these places. And oh my gosh, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Do you have a hard stop? Because I could keep talking about this forever, but we're already longer than a normal episode. And I don't want to completely ruin the rest of your evening.
No. And I don't want to ruin your evening because I really enjoy this. This is really cool.
Oh man, that's amazing. All right. So, so before I let people go, I always ask, is there some kind of like an industry soapbox that they want to get on or something they want to plug or get off their chest or just something, eDiscovery, cyber, whatever it is, related, just what's on your mind as relates to your day job?
Well, it's funny because for some reason, just like the way that my career has gone, and I think it was the one that you podcast you did with Richard. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, he's been in this industry a long time and I have as well. And it just seems like things are happening where I'm getting out a little bit more and I'm meeting more people where I've been saying to myself, like, how can I give back? Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to ride his coattails on that topic because, I would probably say mentorship. You can do these certifications and I love the ACEDs. Actually, I was talking to somebody about that because it was the first certification that really made me test my skills, like end-to-end eDiscovery skills.
Yeah.
And it was a fun reminder for me that it's very hard to learn. Like I've been so fortunate in my jobs where you just kind of roll up your sleeves and you jump in and everybody's kind of got their own preference for how you do eDiscovery. Yes, we've got the EDRM. Yes, it follows a certain guideline, but to truly get the experience, you really have to just dive in and do it. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of triggered in me, like, I just want to find ways to give back. So, mentorship, and putting it out there that, there's people willing to help who've been doing this a long time. If someone's new and doesn't know how to get started or doesn't know where to go. So I always, I was actually thinking about that because you had asked me that, have that little block for what you want to put out there. And it's like, I've been doing this for way too long. It's like, if someone wants, help or something like that, I want to try to find a way to give back and to do things like that. So I'd probably say mentorship.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. And, I love your plug for the SEDS exam too. We're recording this on September 23rd. I purchased, they had their like Black Friday sale last year.
Yeah. I actually know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I made the purchase and have not looked one single time at the study materials. Here we are 11 months later. So seems like I have some work to do. So thank you for guilting me into that and plug for the SEDS exam.
So are you going to become my first mentorship challenge?
I mean, probably because the PMs here are just like, get out of here. You goofball marketing guy. I don't want this.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I love it. Maureen, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You too. I hope it turns out well.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.